This is Remembering Smallville,
a Smallville rewatch podcast.
I'm Daniel.
I'm Nicole.
I'm Kim.
And I'm Brett.
Hey everyone, we recorded an amazing episode and we went for about an hour and 20 minutes and then we realized that we had a mishap with our recording equipment. None of it recorded. So guess what? We do not want to re-record and we are not going to because that's a lot of work and that's so lame that it did not record. So guess what? We will give you a tiny little recap of what happened and that's what you get.
This is Season 2, Episode 1, Vortex, mini version.
Lex and Clark search for Jonathan. Clark saves Lana from the tornado, leading Lana to be suspicious of Clark. While protecting Clark's secret, Jonathan gets trapped with reporter Roger Nixon in an underground mausoleum. Lex and Clark search for Jonathan.
So this is a great episode. We had a lot of fun getting the conclusion. I can't believe people would have had to wait forever to listen to or to watch this episode. Jeez.
Would have been nuts.
But I do love we get all of the loose ends from last episode tied up, and we start to get a couple of plots that are major for season 2. And we'll talk about them more as the episodes go on. But 1 is the wedge that's driven between Clark and Lex. And 2 is the wedge driven between Lana and Clark about his secrets.
Lionel and Lex and their relationship while Lionel is living in Smallville.
Yep. So this episode really kicks all of that off. Let's talk about just some of the things that we loved, things we didn't love, and go about it that way. So what do you guys think?
So little things I loved, the little detail, you could see a path where the tornado went. If you guys notice.
Yeah.
Nixon is so slimy and scummy, I can't even handle it. And Clark calls his mom Supermom, and I loved it.
Yeah, that was great.
I thought it was awesome that Jonathan saved Nixon's life several times and he had the opportunity to kill him, but it showed where Clark is able to get his moral compass from and that Jonathan is just as awesome as Clark is without powers. Mm-hmm. So that's really a big moment for me. Mama Kent, she's lifting everyone up and is exactly how you should write powerful women characters. Mm-hmm. She is going through a hard time herself and is lifting others up, inspiring Clark, inspiring Lana, inspiring the town and helping others even when she's going through things. Freaking awesome. And Chloe offers the friendship zone back to Clark.
Yeah, that's annoying. Because boys never know when a girl's wanting him to fight for them. They just think, oh, I guess I have to back off now.
So always fight. That's...
Yeah. If you're a single man and a girl tells you something, you should fight for her. Worst case scenario, you stay in the friend zone. Best case scenario, you score.
So the main things I took away from this episode are that there's this whole thing with Jonathan in the cemetery, which I love to see, like the big bell on the ground, and that the trailer happens to be lined with lead so Clark can't see them, and they decide to dig out like Count of Monte Cristo, and they have a landslide like Count of Monte Cristo.
Yeah, and Nixon gets the treatment that Dumbledore gets in Chateau d'If.
I just like this episode because it's very, is this going to kill him? Because you know Nixon has to die at some point.
Yeah, he
but
has to.
Oh, the landslide's going to kill him. Doesn't. Then you think, is Jonathan going to have to kill him? But then he doesn't, but Lex does. It was just so great, and it was just so surprising. I was shocked that it was Lex that did it. So I loved that.
And you get some Lionel. He goes through having been so injured from the storm that he has to go under for a surgery. The Smallville doctor recommends it doesn't happen, and the specialist that Lex flies in recommends that they do it, and Lex makes the choice to do the operation. It results in Lionel being blind, and Lionel kind of blames Lex, is upset with him. Lex knew this would happen, and Lex meanwhile tries to help Clark find Jonathan, and then finds out that Nixon is involved. The wedge is driven between Clark and Lex because Lex is unable to lie well enough to Clark to prevent this from happening. And so now Clark doesn't really trust Lex the same way he used to.
One of the key plot points of this episode was that the cliffhanger from last season, Clark running into the tornado. Mm-hmm. He runs into the tornado. Mm-hmm. In the tornado, he's swirling up, and he goes into the truck with Lana, protects her, and actually saves her, brings her to the hospital, but then pretends that he just found her on the side of the road and brought her to the hospital. She has trust issues with this, so this is one of those wedges that Daniel had referred to that's going to be a reoccurring theme throughout this season, is that there's a trust issue. She thinks something happened, and Clark says it didn't.
Yeah, something we talked about that I wouldn't want to be forgotten is in season 1, the mystery of Clark Kent was cute for Lana. And
Yeah.
it's not so cute for her anymore. She's kind of done accepting his mystery. She wants the answers now.
It seems like everybody is going to start to get in this season a lot more intelligent about questions they ask. And Brett and I both feel like this, right? Season 2 is so much better than season 1. Getting into this first episode, they really start off with a bang. They've been renewed. They're good to go. Now they can really put some hard work in, and that's super fun to me. I really enjoyed this episode. One of the things that's really big is that Clark lifts the heaviest thing to date.
Oh, yeah.
That whole trailer.
Yeah, he has not lifted anything quite that heavy
The
since.
hot pink trailer that just lands right on the cemetery entrance.
I know.
The mausoleum entrance.
Oh my gosh, and there's this funny part. So Nicole and I are watching on my laptop, so it's pretty close to us. We could actually touch the screen.
Yeah.
And there's this part where the cave-in happens, and they're like, no, the air supply's been cut off. And I just pointed at the shafts of light. Nicole and I had a good laugh about that because yes, they need lighting in there so you can actually see, but
It was just funny.
it's just a silly little thing.
But we all agreed it was a super episode. We loved it. And we're really sad that no one will get to hear the giant long conversation we had about every scene in detail. And we don't have the energy for you people to record it again. So this is all you're going to get. Any last thoughts, you guys, before we wrap up this Blitz recap? No.
Shout out to all Meteor Freaks. We can't help you, but you can help us by following us on social media at Remembering Smallville, and our link is in the description.
Now it's time for part 2.
Okay, season 2, episode 2. We're going to record this, but we want to talk a little bit about relationships. If you've seen this episode, you'll understand why, but we want to find out how quickly did you guys get married? Daniel, Nicole.
And we're all bad examples.
Which is,
We're not as bad as Lex and Desiree, though.
True.
I know people tell us we got married fast, and then, you see Lex and Desiree in this episode, and it's not even close. So Nicole and I met in June of 2016, and we were married in January of 2017.
We were engaged for 100 days.
Once we started dating, the way we did the whole talk, I was like, I don't want to date anyone but you. And she was like, me too. We played no games. We didn't do any of the will they, won't they garbage or any of that. We just were like, I like you, you like me, cool. And then when it was time to say I love you, I said I love you while we were watching Thoroughly Modern Millie.
I'm quick to drop the album.
Yeah, it was like a month into dating at most. And then we were like, well, we know we love each other. We want to get married because we started talking marriage enough. And we were spending every single day together. It was just
I
easy.
was 26,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is pretty late for a Utah girl.
Yeah.
Look at you. Look at you.
So yeah, and then the rest is history. We got married really fast, much to Nicole's parents' chagrin. When I asked her dad for his blessing to marry her, he said, no way in hell. And I said, well, we're doing it anyway, so you can be on board or not. And they chose to be on board. And then when he saw us at the ceremony, he said, I know what? I've never seen two people look at each other like that. You guys are more in love than anyone I've ever seen before. I believe this now.
Oh, I love that.
What about you guys?
So ours is very similar. So from the time we met was 9 months, and we had spent in those 9 months 1 day apart. And so we spent every waking minute together. I had been married before, you guys, for 3.5 years. And so when you talk about no games, it's so similar. I had a list of what I wanted and needed in a relationship and a husband. And if he did not meet those needs, then sweet, I would move on, right? So I knew exactly what I was looking for. Brett felt similarly. And so when we met, we were like, oh, you're it. Like when you know, you know.
Yep.
And so we're like, why waste any time? And 13 years later, we're still going strong. It was funny because not only did we get married 9 months after we met, it was very short after my divorce. Very short after my divorce. And so everyone's like, you guys,
Just a rebound. It's gonna happen again.
Yeah.
What are you doing, Kim?
did you know that the rate for divorce for second marriages is way higher than first?
Oh,
because that's
really?
what people do. Yeah,
Oh.
way higher. And so they were like, Kim, it's a rebound. You're just going to get divorced again.
Right.
And so I was terrified, but I knew what I wanted, and I knew I wanted to be with Brett forever. And so I was like, okay,
It's
I'm
happening.
sorry. And so like 13 years later, I'm like, suck it, everyone. Like, we are still together and going strong. So
She's pretty amazing. I'm sure if you've been listening, you understand why I'm married to her. We're not sure why she's married to me, but I know why I'm married to her.
I'm sorry. After everyone meets Brett, they're like, oh yeah, Kim won in this relationship.
Yeah, Brett's pretty incredible. He likes to bag on himself, but
Yeah.
and like I married the best person in my wife's entire family by far.
Oh yeah, we talked about that too.
Like Nicole is so superior to
Well,
the
I
rest
think
of
you're
her
the best
family.
one in your family too.
Aw.
Nah.
Well, as much as I like her family for the most part, I really love her brothers. Like, they've been so good to me, but she blows the rest of them out of the water in her goodness and just the way she is. I think she's far superior as a person.
Nicole, are you the only girl?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so I did marry her dad's only daughter.
The bar is
No
high.
wonder. He's like, nobody can marry this princess.
He wanted me to like find an heir or something.
Well, and speaking of finding an heir, Lex accidentally acquires an heir to all of his money almost in this episode of Smallville.
Smallville, Season 2, Episode 2, Heat.
In this episode, a sexy new teacher uses the power of pheromones to convince Lex to marry her and cause other issues. Meanwhile, Clark loses control over an alarming new superpower.
Oh, this episode's so fun.
I hated it.
Oh, you did? I love this
Hated
episode.
it.
Because I watched it as a teen when my hormones were ablaze.
Hormoning.
Of course
Yes.
you did. I thought it was so cringy. I sat next to Brett and I was like, this is so gross. I can't even handle it.
I love every minute of it.
I love this episode in that we get heat vision.
Yes.
But it is a little cringy. I don't know. It's fun cringe for me. It's, there's two types of cringe. There's the cringe where you're like, this is fun. And then there's the cringe where you're like,
That was
Kill
the
me.
kind of cringe I had. Kill me.
Watching this with Kim, there were parts that she genuinely liked, but there was a lot of this episode that she's like, kill me now.
It's true. I'm still on the second season excitement wave. And so I was like, oh, this is going to be so good. And I was like, oh, this is terrible. And I was like, oh, that part's cute. And yeah. So
I
I was
guess
very...
we'll talk about all those moments right now.
Let's do it. Let's get into it.
so we start with this classic, let's make a video letter for Whitney.
He's off in the military. We do get a welcome back. They're back from summer vacation, so now they're officially sophomores, right?
And everybody's heckin' sweaty.
Because
in
it's
this
going through a
episode.
heat wave.
And do you know what I noticed? Clark is not. I thought that was the cutest.
Oh,
Except
he
for
gets a
when
bit sweaty in class.
There's a couple moments where he does.
Really?
Yeah, when the
think he
power
could
activates
sweat.
the first couple of times, he gets sweaty.
Oh.
But other than that, yeah, everyone else is
everyone's
sweating.
literally sopping wet the whole episode except Clark.
I noticed that. That is the worst part for me. I don't really like sweatiness.
Yeah, me neither. Ew.
Ugh.
Yeah.
There is a mention, though, we have to talk about. It's only mentioned once briefly in this episode right at the beginning. We learn that Chloe is now back from a 3-month summer vacation internship in Metropolis. And Clark's like, oh, I'm glad you're back. And Chloe says, yeah, my dad decided to give LexCorp a shot. So that means...
that's the only mention of LexCorp in this episode. And it
did
gets
you
mentioned
catch that,
again.
Kim?
Yeah, so that means that it's reopened.
Well, it's LuthorCorp. So this is LexCorp.
I did not catch that.
It's very subtle because that is a thing later. Like, it's LexCorp. Lex starts his own thing in Smallville. LexCorp. In the end of season 1, Lionel closes the plant and Lex is trying to do a buyout.
Yes, and you never hear any more about it.
That's this one sentence you're going to get.
And that's where
LexCorp.
Chloe's dad is willing to give LexCorp a chance.
I cannot believe I didn't notice that.
Well, it's so subtle.
Wow.
This is the fun part of this episode is that there's been a time skip between episode 1 and episode 2 of 3 months. This is now the new school year, and it's a lot of fun for me that we're finally in their sophomore year.
They're now sophomores. So our daughter just finished her sophomore year. So just keep that in mind as you're watching them this year, Kim, to see that this is sophomores.
They look so much older than sophomores.
Oh my gosh.
But that's okay. We know that Chloe and Clark haven't really talked. She's like, yeah, thanks for all your letters, you idiot. Didn't send me anything. But that's okay. I was super into this super cute dude I met there.
Hot intern. And
I knew
we pretty much
immediately she was
forgot.
lying. I was like, she made that up. Which is great acting on her part, right? Because she's trying to make it seem like she's into it, but actually she's lying.
And the space, I'm sure the time away did help with the whole issues they were dealing with before. So that's good.
Yes.
They need some time just to be friends.
Yeah.
And it helps us not have the drama.
Yes. A good step away. You can tell she still has a little bit of feelings when he hugged her and when she looked back at him after she made up the story about the hot guy.
Right.
And so it's dredging up a little bit, but it was a much needed 3-month break.
In this next scene, we get into the fun part of the episode.
The teacher.
Yes.
With her
substitute
see-through
teacher.
dress. I'm sorry. She's standing by the window. You can see her legs, her thigh gap in her dress.
That is
Yep.
the most inappropriate teacher outfit I've almost ever seen.
This really is like
the fact
every
that you
teenage
just said
boy.
almost ever seen frightens me.
I've seen worse on the internet.
Ugh.
Like,
Like in real life?
yeah, like this. I saw like an Instagram reel once, which was probably originally a TikTok that was some whorish teacher being like, what I wear in a week to school. And people were like, if you wear that, I wouldn't send my kid to you. It was, so this is just as bad.
Oh my god.
And this was a long time ago. So
Yeah, so I had to laugh with Lana. So if you pause the episode at 2:21, she is trying not to laugh at the obnoxious situation that she's in, and Chloe does the same.
Yeah.
They cannot believe that the teacher is seriously behaving this way, and they're going to have sex ed from this teacher, and all the boys are completely locked in, and it's disgusting, and they just can't handle it. So 2 minutes, 21 seconds, pause it, and laugh with Lana.
Chloe says this later, but she is like every teenage boy's dream teacher for a moment. Every teenage boy sees a hot teacher get on the news for doing stuff with a student and is like, man, why doesn't my school have those? But
horrible.
Okay, so they're watching a sex video of animals doing it. Lions, monkeys. I was like, oh.
And Clark is being creepy, man.
He's looking back at the teacher sweating his eyeballs off.
And she catches him.
And then she's like, look at the screen. And he's all sweaty. And you hear the word like pheromones.
Intercourse and coitus.
Intercourse, coitus, pheromones.
the sexiest of all sexual words, right?
Ew.
And then Clark gets all sweaty and
He starts feeling things in parts of his body.
that, yeah.
Nicole.
His eyes.
What were you thinking, Brett? He just loses the heat out of his eyes and into the screen.
I love that he gets horny and it comes out of his eyes.
So Clark starts a fire on the projector. Right as the sperm is about to go into the egg in the screen. So now they'll never know how babies are made.
Causes fire. Makes everyone in that class scared to ever get.
Yeah. And so they get evacuated out, and Lex pulls up in his super baggy suit. And
Okay, hold on.
Okay.
Everyone, let's talk about this. Everyone is sweating to death and wearing little clothing. He's not in a suit, okay? He's in black pants with some weird black jacket, long sleeve.
so hot.
Why?
So
Why?
sweaty.
It's so weird.
because he can. He can pay for air conditioning.
I guess. And he goes and gives his fiance a hug and a kiss. And Clark's like, what? When did this happen?
He's like, you went on a business trip for 2 weeks and you came back with a fiance? And I just think it's hilarious that Lex introduces the teacher to him, and she's got the most annoying voice in the entire episode. Suddenly, Lex is like, I was going to have this messengered. Here's the world's most garbagiest invitation to a wedding. It's tiny. It's cheap.
Okay, let me
You
see.
think Lex and this lady are going to have these like Walmart wedding invitations? What is this?
She's saving all of the money for herself.
Oh, good point.
I don't know. The wedding was pretty lavish for her to be doing
Well,
that.
she's going to celebrate and party hard, but why spend money on other people?
True.
Wait, I want to look at it. Okay, here comes the wedding invitation.
It's like the tiniest
like
envelope.
3 inches by 3 inches. And Lex asks Clark to be his best man.
Clark says yes.
Watching this with Kim, it was literally an episode of what? 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 And yes, I know that's really breathy. That's the whats I was getting.
It was so crazy. Like, oh, it's my fiance. I was like, huh?
Which, if anyone ever asks you to be their best man, you say absolutely yes every time, just so you know.
I love that.
We find out through this invitation that the wedding is tonight.
Yeah.
Insanity.
Poor Clark has to get his tux and everything by tonight.
I mean, some serious red flags there, right?
Oh, yeah.
Immediately, I was like, what's going on? Lex never makes a quick decision like this.
Yeah.
I'd totally forgotten about this part of this episode. I always remember this is the episode when his heat vision comes in, but I totally forgot the
B
teacher.
story.
Yeah.
Well, what's crazy is this is the exact same superpower as the handshake dudes,
Yes.
just with lips and pink breath.
And
Oh,
pink.
Desiree's power.
Yes.
Yeah.
When she used her power for the first time, I was like, oh, she has pink powers.
Yeah, well, Lex is having her sign a prenup because his father demands it. And then she uses his power on him with a kiss to convince him. And this kiss, the only adjective, whatever.
I'll say the word and I'll let you know.
The only word I can describe around this kiss is chewy.
That's an adjective.
Chewy.
Yeah, this kiss felt chewy to me. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
like if you watch that kiss, the word that came to mind, the adjective, was chewy.
Sick.
You even see like Lex's tongue. I was like,
Oh, I know. It was like The Bachelor.
Yeah.
Like how they just are always these open, moist mouth kisses.
oh yeah.
So our next scene, we go to the Kent's home, and I loved this. They're so frugal with their money, they don't have AC.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Martha, what is your aversion to this? Power bill.
Yeah.
And I wanted to call out, it's not orange juice now. It's lemonade.
Because it's summer. And it's after school. It's not morning.
I love it.
I love that Clark is like, Mom and Dad.
This is uncomfortable.
A thing happened
but
today.
let me tell you. Yeah, and he's honest. I love it.
And then his mom's like, an educational film? He goes, sex educational film? And then she's like,
And now they know. And they're like, crap, this is going to be a major puberty affecting thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I had to think about this and not laugh out loud. Thinking about him being a teenager and going through puberty. What other things could they be afraid of? They don't even know what to expect. And they're thinking, hold on. If he gets a little turned on, he sets things on fire. What other things as a parent of this teenager can we expect or see in the future?
Yes.
There's a big plot point in Smallville about Clark fearing actually having intimacy with somebody
Yeah.
because
he's afraid his swimmers will like explode through her whole system and then shoot out the back of her head.
I was going to put it a lot more delicately, but
Sorry, guys.
I mean, like,
Sorry.
there is a
Our
TV.
audience is male. They get it.
There's a TV show called The Boys, which actually shows the grittiness of what that can be like, of losing control when you have super strength whilst in the middle of
Diddles?
intercourse.
Diddles?
And, like,
Yeah.
it's a real scary thing. And so I wonder if the parents are starting to think, oh man, have we even really thought about
He's going to have sex
maturation
with someone
yet?
and break her in half.
We
Yeah.
were worried about toddler tantrums.
Right.
We thought that was the worst of it. And now, oh no,
Well, yeah, 'cause
hormones.
up until now, he's been relatively
Balanced.
yeah, he's pretty docile in general. Like, he's not super crazy. And now we're starting to get into the teenage hormones happening.
Oh my gosh, this opens a whole new can of worms.
Well, not to be me, but I'm gonna be. This is the same reason why Edward didn't want to diddle Bella, because he was afraid he was gonna kill her.
Boom!
Yes.
There's your reference.
Yes.
Told you I could do it.
Same with
do it every
Holt.
week.
Remember the Edward
Norton
one where he couldn't raise his heart rate, when he was intimate.
Oh yeah, really
Taylor's
boring.
oldest time.
Really boring.
Yes, I think this is additional evidence that Stephanie Meyer freaking watched Smallville.
Probably.
He's honest with his parents, and his parents are like, "Oh my."
Like, we'll get through it, Clark.
Oh, and then he tells them about the wedding, and they're like, what?
Okay. Asking a 16-year-old to be your best man.
I thought that was weird.
But pause. Let's think about this logistic. Martha made that cake in about 2.5 hours because it's daylight at this wedding. So Martha made the cake because there's a mention of it. Someone talks to Clark about your mom did good on the cake. So in that afternoon, Martha made this cake.
Yeah.
I mean, she could have been informed before Clark, maybe.
48 hours notice to plan the wedding.
But you cannot do a 3-tier cake in one day. You have to make it, then let it cool, then freeze it because you have to frost it. So that is impossible.
Maybe she got a cake order and didn't know it was for this wedding.
An anonymous order.
Oh, you make so much sense.
I could make crap up.
Or maybe the writers really wanted it to be quick to raise everyone's hackles, and they forgot that...
Or didn't know that cakes take long.
Time to make.
Oh my gosh, it's not 3-tier. It is 4-tier.
Well, they look happy. What the girls think of her dress, by the way? Did you
Love the
hate
dress.
it?
Hate the gloves.
In that heat wave, those gloves would suck.
Oh my gosh. I love the dress. Do you know what I love more? I love Chloe's dress, and I love her early 2000s hairstyle.
I did too. I
It's
really
so
liked what Chloe
cute.
was wearing. I usually am not a fan of her clothes,
Yeah.
but I like her in this
Did
outfit.
Good, yeah.
She's heckin' cute. Yep, that's true. I think it's interesting she got a wedding invite. It doesn't seem that crazy.
I
but
think her dad got a wedding invite, and her dad doesn't have a wife. She's died or left him.
So
or
he brought
whatever.
her. That makes more sense. Look at you bringing out the logic.
Wait, does Chloe not have a living mom?
No,
Oh my.
she might be alive, but had left.
Not in the
I
picture.
don't remember, but I know that there's not a mom figure at the moment. I know that.
Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
remember the things about Chloe's mother.
You do, Brett, right? I can see it in your eyes.
You could see it in his eyes. He does this thing where he like lifts his eyebrows 4 times and looks at you, and then he shifts them back and forth. That's when you know Brett has something interesting that he can't share because spoilers. Oh, there's this great line. Clark's staring at
Desiree.
Desiree, and as Lex walks up to him, he's like, "Careful, Clark, you'll burn your eyes out."
I know. I was like,
Listen, if you've seen the whole episode, you'll get this, but it would have been really funny if this wedding was burned down by Clark's eyes.
That would be funny. That would have been a more interesting story. Because he could have almost had that. The whole next scene is Clark and Lana after the wedding trying to have some iced coffee and conversation. And she ever so slightly opens the door to the relationship. And bam, fire! So
Vampire.
that could have happened here at the wedding. That would have been funny.
yeah.
Bam, fire. Yeah, at the Talon, Clark really roasts things. And it's just funny because it's got to be so confusing that your eyes are burning while you're feeling all of these emotions and other things happening.
No.
There's this joke where when women are turned on, you don't see any physical difference. But when men are, unfortunately, there is like a physical difference. Clark has 2 of those. Poor boy.
Hey, maybe not. Maybe they don't have intercourse like they do here.
They absolutely do.
What?
And so Clark has now set 2 fires, and he is hiding in the barn, and his dad comes in, and Clark's like averting his eyes. He's looking
Yes,
down
he's
anywhere.
terrified.
I feel so bad for him. And this is another reason why Clark's parents need to learn, like, you can't just tell a kid who clearly has anxiety problems, don't worry about it. It'll be fine.
Yeah, for Nicole, I wrote this note that Clark's hormones strike again.
They do.
So he's asking his dad essentially for help, or rather Jonathan is giving him help even if he doesn't want it. And I couldn't help but laugh at a couple of the things that happen in this segment when he's trying to help Clark learn how to control his fire vision.
Yeah. Think about what you were thinking back then.
And then he asks his dad to step away, and his dad goes, "Yeah, I'll give you some space. I'd hate to be right next to you."
Ew, I know.
He's like, "Open your spank bank, son." While
And I said, okay, what's the alternative to Spank Bank? And I said, Flame Game.
I love
Oh
it.
my gosh.
Open your flame. Okay, listen, I put Clark, close your eyes when you kiss anyone.
So,
but I do love that, like, Jonathan's like, let's get
A handle.
a handle on this. Let's actually practice so that you can control
He
it.
says, you got to find the on switch so that then you can use the off switch.
With some scarecrow in the field.
Well, what's crazy is it goes 5 scarecrows, 2 water barrels, and 1 mailbox later, New skill unlocked.
And what is it that turns the on switch on?
Lana.
Now that Clark figured out the on switch initially, I think now it's just a power. It's not a thing that he has to like get horny for.
Yes.
He's not going to be like fighting a bad guy being like,
Yes, that's what I gathered. Once it's unlocked, it's unlocked.
yeah, it's unlocked.
The great thing about what they do with this power is they show not only can he control it turning on and off, but he can control the actual
Amount of heat.
Yes.
Yes.
So, Kim, did you know about his heat vision?
Yes, I knew Superman had heat vision. I had no idea that this episode would be about his heat vision. And when I had no idea they would tie it to hormones. And so I was like automatically disgusted. I was like, oh. But then I was like, okay, it's unlocked. This is how, yes. He's
Right.
like, he just
He doesn't have to be horny anymore. He doesn't need a
Yes.
boner to have his eyes flame out.
flame out, yeah.
So this next part is just a little thing, but it made me laugh. He's cooking popcorn in a pan.
With
And
his
of
eyes.
course, yeah, with his eyes. He's
And he's
using
all
his heat
proud
vision
of
for it.
himself.
But it's a whole different thing that Clark pops one, if you know what I mean, because he
Yeah.
does it all the way to the top, and you hear it just right as they say sex. It just pops.
Yeah. And Martha's like, oh.
It's so funny.
I love it.
And he's like, don't worry, I have it all under control. Pop. You know?
Next time
Yeah.
I'm on a date, I can be close without setting her on fire. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great thing. Let's not set our dates on fire.
Well, and as parents, you're like, what other powers is he going to unlock in his lifetime?
Like if he cries, is something terrible going to happen? Like when he's
Yeah.
upset? Like it's
Tears
all
of
connected.
flame. Yeah.
The next scene really is yucky.
It's really
so
yucky.
yucky. Clark is just lighting every candle they own, practicing his flame power, which I think he's established he can do. He's lit 55 candles. Enough's enough, kid. But then the whore of Babylon shows up.
In red.
The whore of Babylon.
Lady in red.
You guys are going to get mad at this, but when I first saw her, I thought I've only ever seen pictures of what is Clark's future girlfriend's name.
You thought it was Lois?
No,
So
just thinks that
I've
she
only
looks
seen
like her.
pictures of Lois, and so I feel like she has a look of Lois.
She does look like Lois.
Isn't that
Oh, it's
gross?
very similar.
Yeah, there's a bit of uncanniness to it, isn't there?
Yeah. But she seduces him in the barn. Guys, he is 15.
16.
Maybe 16.
He turned his birthday's in the summer, so it
Is
would have
it?
passed. Yeah.
Okay. Still, gross. I don't care.
Can you
Disgusting.
imagine if the gender roles were reversed?
Oh,
And it was like some late 20s. The crazy thing about this, we learn later, she's old.
She's like 40 or
Yeah.
something.
If
Well,
she
you can
was
tell.
old enough to be yoinking a dude during a meteor shower, she's old now.
yeah.
She was at least in high school
Yeah.
at that time. So Kim brings up a point on this, and I loved it. This is what she said while we were watching it. Pink magic doesn't work on Clark. Pink magic doesn't work on Clark.
But let me tell you something. It's 100% not magic.
It's a meteor power. Meteor powers aren't necessarily magic.
They're not magic. Because if it was magic,
Spoilers.
Magic does work. You guys are
Yes,
just all
I'll say
staring
it.
at
Yes,
me.
it
Yes.
does.
Okay. One of the things about Superman's weakness is he is not only vulnerable to kryptonite. Magic is something he's also vulnerable to. So, like true, like magic, like witchcraft magic.
witchcraft
sorcery.
magic, he can be affected by,
Oh my
which is
gosh.
a beautiful plot point in the future.
Ooh.
She's gonna love that
Yeah.
character, isn't she?
Yes, she is.
I'm so excited.
You don't know who
I think so.
we're talking about.
I think
but-
so.
Oh.
So I think we always say like, "Oh, her magic lips." Okay, we can say that, but everyone,
Her meteor
it's not.
lips.
It's not magic.
Yeah.
Because if it was genuine like witchcraft magic, Clark would be like, "Yes, get in my pants."
Yes. So what happens is she starts to seduce him, right? And quickly realizes that he is immune to her power. And she's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I must leave." And then she turns it around on him. This made me so
I
mad.
hated it.
Oh my gosh. And so Lex gets upset with Clark and is like, "Hey, stay away from my wife."
She is desperate to be able to put everyone under her control, and when she can't,
Yeah, but we've learned later the real reason she came for Clark is not that she has an interest in Clark.
That's what I was so confused at. I was like, why is she has Lex. Like, what does she need from Clark?
Yeah, it didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
We learn later why it makes sense.
Yeah,
But we
she
don't.
goes to them. Spoiler: if you didn't watch it, you should be. She goes after these other people to kill the spouse.
So she
She's a
can get their
Black
money.
Widow.
Yep.
Yep, she is the Black Widow Queen. So that was her
She's a
villain
Black
name.
Widow, baby.
Thank you.
In the next scene, we have Clark and Chloe investigating this a little bit more thoroughly. Clark tells Chloe what the teacher did, and she doesn't really believe him, but he insists further, and so she's like, okay, well, at least I'll entertain the idea in there. They found out that she used to go to Smallville High, that she's from here, and that she's had her name changed. It's not actually Desiree.
But they don't know any of her past stuff yet. They're still in phase 1 of the
they don't know anything
investigation.
other than that she's changed her name and went to Smallville.
So Clark brings this new information to Lex, and Lex has heard this false story from his new wife, and friendship is now on the rocks again.
But this is due to manipulation of superpowers, so it's not, I don't think this episode particularly has long-term effects on.
Yeah, because you can clearly see that Lex is under some type of spell.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
not
under her
but-
spell, even though it's not magic.
Yes.
It's fine. Then we get to Lana and Chloe talking at the Talon. They're actually sharing about their feelings for Clark with
Yeah,
one
they're being
another.
pretty open.
Yeah.
This is good. This is another part of this season 2 is that Lana and Chloe become a lot closer, become true best friends. So it's fun to watch that budding relationship happen, although it just makes things a little bit more complicated for the
that
love triangle.
So
Yeah.
do they become best friends?
They're just going to be as good as friends as
They
can.
are becoming best friends right now.
Yeah, Lana's too busy. She works at the Talon every day after school till closing. She doesn't have time for anything anyway, and she's still technically dating Whitney.
Yeah.
So she doesn't really go anywhere or do anything. What's crazy in this scene, after the two girls decide, let's be friends, well, it doesn't matter who we date, we're going to be friends with each other. Lex comes in and says, I'm closing this place.
Yeah.
Yep, he's under the influence of Naughty Girl, the Black Widow.
I did not see this coming.
Yeah.
He's basically just doing everything he can to get more money because
Yeah,
that's what she's trying to
yeah.
do. She's trying to get all of his money.
Anything that gives him more like capital and assets.
And then back at school, Clark knows that Desiree is a naughty girl and he's not having it with her. And he confronts her a little bit about it.
It's super awkward.
It is really awkward.
I know. And just the way she talks. Do you guys know anyone in your real life who talks the way she talks?
No.
She's trying to be sexy and it's not excellent.
I hate
It's,
it.
it's not great.
Yeah.
It's not believable. It makes her just so disingenuous
Yeah.
of a person.
And in the next one, can't help but have another car explosion.
Right.
It wouldn't be an episode without it.
The car flips like 4 times. It's like flip, flip, flip.
The car that explodes flips around?
Yeah.
Yes,
Watch this
watch
thing.
it.
Yeah. Do cars do that in real life?
No. And out of nowhere, instead of just bursting into flames, it just goes
she
up
didn't,
in the
She
air.
didn't plant a bomb in it. She just lit it on fire, and then it's going to explode up and flip around several
Yeah,
times.
clearly the special effects team were having fun with this one.
Yeah.
Like, they put all they could into
All
it.
right, guys, we can't use any CGI, but guess what we can do? We can set things ablaze. Let's do it.
Desiree sets her own car on fire and then blames,
Clark!
which makes it so that Clark is going to have to go to jail.
Police Chief Ethan shows up and says, 3 fires in 3 days. Clark, gotta take you in.
Yep.
Kim noticed in this episode, Martha got a haircut.
She did. Very small, but it's a haircut. A light dusting.
I like dusting.
I do like that before Clark gets arrested, he does tell his parents about the seduction. So now they're pissed.
Which would be
Yeah.
hard to tell.
Oh,
Because
so
as
hard.
a kid, I feel like you either think, A, you're not going to be believed, and B, you're in fault somehow.
Yeah.
And this is huge for me because a lot of times series that are this dated, in this case 20 years from this episode coming out, 20 plus years, you can have a situation that's not handled well for that time, that it doesn't age well. In this case, it does, because we've seen situations like this that have come up in the news over the last 20 years. And so I'm glad that he knew to speak out about it, address it, take it to his parents. That's something that would not be handled the same way in TV today.
And the worst thing you can do as a parent is not believe your kid, right? Even if you're questioning it, you do not let your kids see that. Like, because right then and there, your kids will be like, oh, they don't believe me.
And Martha and Jonathan tell Clark to comply with the officer as they
Yeah.
take him away because he can't.
Let him put handcuffs on you and walk away. We know you could get out, but don't.
Yeah.
Poor Martha's face. She's like, my son's getting arrested for his first time.
And then the next day at the Talon, Martha gets an opportunity to approach Lex about everything with this.
And it was incredible.
She puts him in
yeah.
his place so hard and puts the doubts in him about Desiree.
And I love Lex's face because you can see the doubts coming in. Like, what great acting.
Yeah, he's fighting with the...
It's that realization of she's right.
Yeah, something's going on. Yeah.
But I was so sure.
But as an actor, to see all those emotions on your face
Without saying a word.
Oh, so
Well,
good.
Martha accidentally encounters Lex here. She wasn't going to the Talon to confront him.
Yeah.
Jonathan is attempting to go confront Lex. He's going to the mansion, which is why when the next scene we see...
A topless Desiree swimming in the pool.
I was like, Brett, she's topless. And he's like, no, she's not. And I was like, she is.
100%.
And then he was like, oh!
I think that in reality she would have been naked.
Well,
But they
yes.
couldn't show her bare butt in the
You
show.
can
Yeah.
in TV now.
Yeah.
Oh my
so,
gosh.
Isn't that
I
crazy?
well, you can show everything in TV if you just label it in TV mature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is really icky. And it's like, oh, don't seduce Jonathan.
I had a thought. Do her powers work on women? Or like, would a lesbian, would that work?
I feel like, yeah.
Or do you have to have an attraction already for her to draw on?
Like if you were a gay man who thought all women were disgusting and she like purple breathed into his mouth, would he be like, ew, honey, no?
It seems like she can manipulate anyone, just like the handshake guy.
You think?
But
Well,
I think
but we
so.
didn't see it, so it'd be interesting.
She just chooses men because that's her shtick.
Okay,
Yeah.
devil's advocate for Clark being in jail right now. I know he didn't actually set her car on fire, but he did in fact start the fires at school
I know.
and the Talon. In theory, he really fits the category of arsonist at this point.
And
Yeah.
finally, the police are actually putting Clark at crime scenes together for the first time.
And they're like, we just went into your field. There's 5 burnt up scarecrows, 3 burned up barrels, water barrels, and your mailbox is all charred up.
Singed.
Like too many things. So yeah, just throwing it out there. There actually might be a reason for him to be there.
I just love starting fires. What do you? I just love it.
So somehow Chloe and Lana are still willing to help Clark.
Yeah, they come to jail to visit him and tell him that they've learned even further information about Desiree, all the dirt on her, that she's essentially a Black Widow who gets rid of men to steal their money, and her recent money has run out, and she's after Lex.
I love that this is a small town, right? Smallville. Because to get into the jail to visit him seems like it's
Pretty simple.
just like, hey, we want to go see our friend and hand him a bunch of stuff through the cell. You guys are cool with that, right? Oh, yeah. Just head back.
Yep.
Old West jail.
And then after like 2 minutes and 30 seconds, all right, ladies, time's up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, oh, you're out of dialogue? Get out of my jail cell.
Right.
That happens so often in TV shows. Like, a character will show up to the diner to eat with his friends, but then he gets up and leaves 2 seconds later.
Yes.
After he delivers his important information or his
Yeah.
dialogue. He's
Yes.
like, well, anyway, gotta
See you
go.
later.
Like, just any show, you name it. They go somewhere to do something, then they don't do that thing that they went to do, and they just leave.
It's so true.
I do love that Chloe takes another dig at Clark for being immune to some members of the opposite sex. I laughed at that. Lucky for us, Clark Kent seems to be immune to some members of the opposite sex. Boom. And he looks up. Oh, shoot. And Lana's feeling uncomfortable. It was the perfect line.
Chloe is the queen of passive-aggressive statements that are actually really funny to me. We get back to the mansion, and finally Desiree's plan comes into fruition. She has convinced Jonathan to hide in the closet with a gun, and she has a feeling that Lex is going to need to be offed now.
This is when it hit me. I was like, oh, she needed Clark and now Jonathan to kill Lex. Okay.
Yep, that's the whole point, because then she can frame it on them, because they actually would do it. It'd be their hands that did it.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can say or do against it.
And then they wake up from the trance 6 hours later and have no idea why or what or how.
Yeah. And Clark in jail, he starts a fire on purpose with his eyes so he can hurry and get out and go save his dad.
So now he's a fugitive.
Yeah.
And we just blame it all on, oh, it's a heat wave outside. That's why fires are starting.
So
It's
this
just too
town
hot
is
outside.
underfunded. Our equipment is old. Did you see the movie device we were using?
Yeah,
You
that's
couldn't,
true.
no VHS. That was like a film reel.
Yeah, and it is a little silly, but it's necessary, I guess. Clark does come to save the day, and he comes into the mansion just in time, and you may have been thinking, okay, well, how is he going to stop the bullet? Is he going to get in his way and hope that everybody's forgets because they're in a trance? Like,
Yes.
What did you think, Kim? What's going to happen? How's he going to stop the bullet?
I was like, he's going to knock everyone out, stop the bullet, and then they'll all come to. I have no
Just go
idea.
tap everyone on the head. Dunk, 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 dunk,
I was
dunk.
thinking the same thing. I was like, well, how is this going to happen? I don't know.
So he decides to just use his heat vision and melt the bullet in midair. That is some hella precision.
Well, he's been practicing with tiny little candle wicks.
That's a candle wick.
It's not a moving
bullet.
yeah.
Yeah, but he's
It's
fast.
pretty impressive.
Yeah,
It's
but-
Yeah,
pretty
but Superman
impressive.
can't do anything wrong, Nicole, remember?
True.
No, but
In
it is.
man's eyes.
It is a really smart save, very intelligent save.
And the graphics are bad, but very creative.
Would there
and
be
good.
like just molten whatever bullets are made out of
Not if
on
he
the ground?
vaporizes it.
What?
Oh.
It looks like he vaporizes the thing.
That's not an option.
Why?
He could just make things disappear with his heat eyes.
At 36 minutes and 11 seconds, this is where we find out what happens to the bullet. So it's flying through the air.
Heat visions it out of thin air.
Zapping is what the closed caption says.
And it looks like he melt.
Literally
No, it gets vaporized.
vaporized.
That's not how elements work.
Yeah, it is.
Someone could just take a penny and heat it up into nothing.
And no, it'd just be metal dust. So you just dust everywhere.
That's what vaporizing is. You turn it into, it's just individual particles.
So hold on, I was part right because then Jonathan goes to shoot Lex again. And guess what? Clark knocks him out.
Yeah, so he does both.
Yep. Then I loved this. Desiree shatters a decanter on Lex's back.
Ouch.
Those are thick.
I
Like,
don't
I
really
think that
Hurt,
would.
if it was possible. It would
Yeah.
hurt.
Yeah. So then I love this part so much. She starts him on fire because it's liquor, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Then she tries to escape. This is my favorite part. Clark heats up the doorknob. But here's the thing. She grabs on. She doesn't let go. She's just screaming.
And then she doesn't then leave after that.
No.
She just stands there. I've been burned.
I've been burned. And I'm like, your skin didn't melt onto, like, it's not like she couldn't let
Yeah.
go.
It's not quite as good as Raiders of the Lost Ark when he picks the thing up. He's like,
Yes.
he sticks it into the snow.
Like Clark should have set her hair on fire or something.
Oh yeah,
Made her ugly.
bald.
Yeah.
Like in Spy Kids when that
Yes.
Yes. She has little patches of hair left over. I loved it. So yeah, she holds on for dear life, screams, and never leaves.
The next scene after is like our wrap up. Martha's taking muffins out of the oven with her oven mitts, and then Clark just grabs them.
I loved it.
And then Jonathan comes in and he acts and he like touches the pan and he's like, ow.
He picks up a muffin. It's
Amazing
like
acting. So fun.
Yeah.
Delicious looking muffins.
just another
Perfect
thing
scene.
saying, look, Clark doesn't need oven mitts.
So good. And
loved it.
I like how it's like, well, they're just going to give you a stern warning, the cops.
Yes.
Well, he is a bit of a town hero, and it is a small town, so they can be as corrupt as they want. That's right.
You can get away with anything.
And then Lex approaches Clark in the barn.
And they make amends, essentially.
Yeah, it's not a full amends, but it does help a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But here's my next thought. We assume Desiree gets arrested. Wouldn't she just seduce everybody in the, like,
That is what Kim said.
Here's what kills me.
yeah, tell me.
Okay, I have this in my notes. Tina Greer, the girl who can turn into anyone, gets put away. She can turn into any security guard, anything, and get out.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
This woman seduce anyone.
Yep.
They cannot be held.
No.
So there is a plot hole for sure.
That's what I'm saying. If they put her in like maybe like a gays only prison with like a bunch of dudes who don't like women, they could guard her.
Yeah. What music did we have?
So we had a
Wait,
lot.
wait.
What?
There's a
what?
really
Lana.
big thing with Lana.
What?
Lana and Clark chat in the Talon and they talk about the video and Lana decides that she's going to break up with Whitney.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And she probes Clark further, and he still isn't letting go, which means she's getting more annoyed with him.
She's like, how did
Yes.
she seduce everyone but not you? And then she says, the mystery that is Clark Kent.
And not in the way she used to say it. She
Not
used to
in an
say it
endearing
kind of
way.
Yeah, endearing, like, oh, you're such a mystery.
Now it's definitely the mystery that is Clark Kent.
Yeah.
I'm
The
over
annoying-
it. Yeah.
And it starts to rain. They hear the rain start to come down outside.
So it can break
The
the,
heat
heat
wave.
wave.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's how it ends.
Aw.
So music.
Yeah, musics. There are a lot of songs in this episode. My Friends Over You by Newfound Glory. I do love that one.
Me too.
It's too easy not to have had in this episode, but Hot in Her by Nelly.
I loved it so
It's
much.
getting hot in here, so take off all your clothes.
I am getting so hot. I'm gonna take my clothes off.
Please do.
All right.
A little
sing
less
that all the time.
conversation. It's a rendition by JXL vs. Elvis, but it's an Elvis song that's added in here. Truth or Dare by NERD featuring Kellis. Tomorrow by Avril Lavigne. 17 and I'm Feeling Lonely, and that's by Diana Walters. So
Heavy music
great.
episode.
it was
Yeah.
definitely a heavy music episode. Okay, Super or Man?
This one's so hard for me because I'm like, ew, it's definitely man, but he gets his heat vision, so
I think it's one you shouldn't skip because
skip
after this,
it.
then he suddenly has heat vision and
skip it. He has heat vision.
That's all you need to know. Because, like, essentially, it's a moot point for Lex. He's getting an annulment.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
problem solved there. Lana and Clark, no progress. Chloe Clark, no progress. The only thing that really matters is he gets heat vision. So
Yeah.
could be skipped.
So I'd say it's a man, in my opinion.
I guess you could say, hey, in the second episode of the season, he gets heat vision, and it's a funny episode if you watch it, but it's not that important. I'll agree with that. It's like, man.
It is super. I don't know. This one, because I have the nostalgia from my teen years of watching
Made you
this and just-
horny.
yes. And just being like, oh, Clark, get heat vision for me. You know?
Tom Welling, heat vision. She's writing in her journal.
Yeah.
I mean, I had fun watching it with Nicole. It was a lot of fun to watch together. So there's that.
It's not my favorite episode by any stretch of the imagination. I do think it falls in one, if you're watching a Superman and you're watching Smallville through, you should see him get his powers. The episodes that he gets different powers in, you should watch them. But this is
Kim does not
not a
agree.
great episode.
The other ones where he gets other powers are better. That's for sure.
Yes, there's some fun ones I'm looking forward to.
Well, on that bombshell, it's time to end.
Bye.
Thank you for remembering Smallville with us. Join us next week when...
A man spits on his window.
Lionel touches a coffee table.
And Pete joins the family. Hi, how are you? I hope you're doing so good today. We're doing amazing. You want to know why? Because we're talking about Smallville, our favorite blast from the past show. If you love Smallville, and I know you do, because why else would you be here? Make sure you check us out on Instagram. Our handle is @Remembering Smallville. And if you can't remember that, write it down. Okay? So go to Instagram. I post there all the time. And I want to hear your comments. Did you love the episode? Did you hate the episode? Do you hate Nell as much as me? Let's join a fan club, the We Hate Nell fan club. And you could be the president or the treasurer. Are you good at counting money? So we'll become best friends. We'll hate Nell together.